orgasmic enlightenment, where the sexual and spiritual come together. I'm Kim Anami, and I'm a holistic sex and relationship coach and a vaginal weightlifter. In this show, we explore all things intimate. I believe that our sexual energy is life force, creative energy, and we can use it to shape our worlds, strengthen our relationships, and self-actualize. I blend the most avant-garde information from neuroscience, ancient sexual practices like Tantra and Taoism, to renegade wellness modalities to show you how to create gourmet sex in your lives. Come one, come all. Well fucked singles. I have had some of my most well-fucked periods of my life when I have been single and without a partner. Yes, you can still be epically well-fucked even without a lover. A jade egg and a dildo or 2 or 3 are great companions, or just your hands. My definition of a well-fucked person is someone who is owning, inhabiting, wearing, and consciously channeling their sexual energy. They are in touch with it and they are able to use it as a power and a pleasure source. And you don't need a partner to do this. In fact, one of the most powerful things you can do to attract a high quality partner is to go fuck yourself. Yes, having gourmet sex with yourself raises your vibration and opens you up to the gifts of the universe, including the gifts of high quality cock and pussy, and brings you into the flow of life. So in this episode, I'm going to speak more about well-fucked female singles, and I'll address well-fucked male singles in a future episode. So the last major single period I had, I actually took a 2.5-year break of sex, and I talk about this in my podcast, Attracting a Partner. So I was celibate for 2.5 years, and yes, I had plenty of sex with myself, but not with other people. I had come out of a very intense breakup, and there was a lot to process, and I decided that before I got involved with anyone new, I wanted to up-level my life, so I felt that I could match them and receive them in every possible way. And so the way that I looked at that is, if there are areas in your life where you feel a little bit embarrassed, or you don't really want to have someone see these parts of you or your existence, then it's really hard to bring somebody in and wholeheartedly meet them because you are not allowing yourself to be met. You know, there's places you're trying to hide. And so when you feel amazing about every part of your life, and you don't have to be perfect, I'm not saying that, but I'm talking about a certain level where you just feel uneasy, right? That we want to get past that to a place of acceptance and even pride in who you are. So there were a couple of areas in my life where I felt I wanted to improve and feel better about before letting somebody in. And so I committed to doing that. I threw myself into my visions and goals for what I wanted, and I focused solely on that, on the up level. And I didn't officially declare celibacy, but these other priorities of mine were at the forefront of my mind and nothing else. And when they were achieved, I just felt that I would know. So it was during this time that I came up with my legendary sequence: meditate, masturbate, create. And this is the formula I use to harvest my sexual energy and use it as a creative source in my life. When I need inspiration, I don't drink coffee. I'll just shove coffee up my ass. I go and I have an orgasm, or 3 or 6, and then I go back to work. I have a great YouTube video that walks you through this sequence, and I'll just explain it here in short. It's exactly as it sounds. I spend 5 to 10 minutes in meditation, and I personally like to meditate using a mantra, and the one probably my favorite is the word HU, H-U. It sounds like HU. This is an ancient name for God, spirit, energy, the universe, whatever you want to call it. And it's found in cultures and writings all over the world, from Africa to Celtic material. And even in Rumi's poetry, he talks about HU as the word of God. And then I self-pleasure. I spend time with my clitoris, and then I usually advance onto one of my Anami Alchemia Couture dildos like Akasha or Anahata. The first one helps with the G-spot and the second one with the cervix, because I'm all about those vaginal orgasms. And all throughout, I breathe deeply so that I'm harvesting and recirculating my sexual energy, right? I always say your sexual energy is your life force energy. And so we can either have a sexual experience that depletes it and just unconsciously ejects it out of us, or we can take that energy and bring it back into ourselves so that we have it available to use in our daily lives. So you practice your self-pleasuring and breathing, and then you go do something. And for me, I may or may not orgasm. It doesn't actually matter. As long as I'm breathing deeply, then I'm able to harvest and recirculate that sexual energy. So then for me, my main creative outlet is writing, but you can go and do anything with that energy. You can paint, you can garden, you can play with your children, you can attack another kind of work project that you have, anything that you like. All right, so here are my top 5 tools for being a well-fucked woman even without a sexual partner. The first is harvesting your sexual energy, and I've touched on this already, the importance of consciously using this energy, and one of the best ways to do that is with my meditate, masturbate, create practice. And this is all about moving and recirculating the energy in the body so that you have it to use in your day-to-day life. Breathing is a huge part of that, a vehicle for moving the energy. And it's not just about this race to have an orgasm, have a clitoral orgasm, I can bust one out in a couple of minutes. No, the longer that we spend stimulating ourselves and breathing deeply, then we're cultivating more and more of this high quality energy. The longer you do it for, the more you harvest. And so the whole point is to build up even to your edge of orgasm, and then breathe and breathe and breathe, and then subside. Allow yourself to drop back a couple notches and then build up again, breathe and breathe and breathe and subside. And you keep repeating that. And that's how you truly harvest a lot of your sexual energy. So I had somebody last year or the year before, I guess, I put out this video, Self-Pleasure 101, and I explained the meditate, masturbate, create sequence. And then I issued a challenge to women to do a 7-day self-pleasuring challenge. And somebody got in touch with me, and the first time she practiced it, so she did it the evening, and then the next day she went out into town, and she had men flocking to her. So one guy ran across the street to accost her, to ask for her phone number, and another one later that afternoon approached her to tell her how beautiful she was. And she was wearing her sexual energy. So she had done the exercise right, in the sense that she was able to then inhabit her sexual energy. It was radiating out of her so strongly that people picked up on it from, yards and yards away, the other side of the road, right? So this is really, really potent stuff. Now, if you are, again, being alone, you can choose to use just your hands, or if you like, you can try out my Anami Alchemia Holy Trinity Couture line of dildos, and they are designed to give you the deeper vaginal orgasms like the G-spot and cervical orgasms. Speaking of which, I would say that number 2 on the list of tools for being a well-fucked single woman would be having vaginal orgasms. So the vagina truly is the holy land. I say this all the time. And, when I hear women say that they could take it or leave it when it comes to sex, it's usually because they've only ever had clitoral orgasms. And if you've heard me say, the Anami guarantee is that all women can. A huge part of what I do is educating people about what's possible and then telling them how to get there. So I guarantee that every woman can get to each of these orgasms. So the deeper vaginal orgasms are so essential as good fuck medicine for women, because this deep mind, body, spirit, vagina, cervix penetration is what we really need. This helps to dislodge old shit, old tension, old trauma, stored issues in the tissues, as Wim Hof says, stuff that's lodged and, wedged within us, in our cells, memories, unresolved things, they stay there. And these deep, intense vaginal orgasms help to release them and process them and integrate them so that we emerge truly with le petit mort, right? The little death and rebirth. And that's the name of the game. Plenty of women have gone through my salons and had all kinds of sexual breakthroughs, a plethora of orgasms, and discovered all of their pleasure centers on their own. So here's a quote from Roshni, one of my favorite all-stars actually. I had 32 orgasms in a row by myself, and then eventually she did manifest a partner, and then she says, and 60 orgasms in a 5-hour sex session with a partner. I can now have a cervical orgasm from having my arms stroked, and I'm able to think myself to orgasm too. Kim's work increased my vaginal arousal and sentience and was the catalyst for me having G-spot, A-spot, and cervical orgasms. All truly incredible and things I never thought were possible for me until Kim opened my eyes and vagina to them. So these are the kinds of things that you can take up in your single time. Third tool I would say is the most important accessory a woman and vagina could have would be a jade yoni egg. So this is how we really wake up and activate the vagina. Most vaginas are numb. And so the true creative and magnetizing, receptive, birthing power of the female reproductive organs aren't activated until we wake them up. And so most vaginas are numb. They're not being exercised properly. Women dissociate from the vagina due to a number of reasons, any number of which could be trauma and unresolved stuff from their past, or just, like I said, not exercising them when it's just like any other muscle in the body. So the vagina can and ought to be functioning as your mover and your shaker, and the egg can act as a lover when you're single. So this becomes your go-to place, and the egg itself has this beautiful symbolism as the seed, right? The manifesting seed. And so the way that I teach the jade egg is with a series of exercises and then guided visualizations to really tap into this harnessing the creative power of these organs and our sexual energy in general. And so we run the Vaginal Kung Fu Salon once a year in February. And if you are listening to this outside of that time, you can buy our jade egg kit with a mini salonette, which is a mini version of Vaginal Kung Fu, through the Anami Alchemia online shop. And that's available anytime. So step number 4 would be clearing sexual blocks. So this is your time to heal and clean up the past, for you to address any of your old unresolved traumas. What I would say happens to most of us, if not all of us, over time is that we have a series of relationships and find that we tend to repeat some of the same patterns, usually in some form of self-sabotage, right? We go in these loops. And so this is an amazing time for assessment, honest self-assessment, right? Not looking at what your partner did to you and how you were victimized in any way, even if you were legitimately wronged. I don't care. What I want you to examine is your part. How did you play into this formula? What do you have to take responsibility for? What can you clean up? And this ranges from behavior patterns to ideas and limiting beliefs that you have, to internalized oppression, internalized collective cultural ideas like, say, the Madonna whore dichotomy that women tend to take on, right? Because we just grow up with it all over the place, and it's in pretty much our creation story in Western culture. So all of these things have to be cleared and moved. Well, they don't have to be fully resolved, but I would say getting a good grasp on them is going to then help you to release that stuff and up level, right? So like attracts like. And so as you do this work on yourself, you bring yourself up to a higher place and a higher vibration, and then you can attract a better quality partner. And so all of this work is leading to that place. And your vaginal orgasms actually act as therapy. They are massively cathartic. Often women have tears of release where they can't even associate what they're crying is related to. And it doesn't matter. They don't have to. They just need to go with the flow of the tears and the release. And they start to let go of stuff that they've been holding on to, right? The body and the vagina are beautifully wise that way and help you to clean up these things. So that is your work, is to address whatever you can identify as being there. And this is a major part of all of my salons, is helping people to figure out what possible blocks could be there and then how to clear them in a very profound and quantum leap way. And then the fifth important piece, I would say, related to all of this is accepting it, meaning accepting that you're single right now, and that's okay. And, sometimes people will be in this state of real longing and self-pity and sadness that they're not in a relationship. And my view on that is, look, accept where you are and dig into the work. If you truly, truly settle into this space and just let it go for now and make loving and growing yourself and orgasming yourself and sexual self-reconnaissance as your main priority, you'll fall in love with you, and then others can fall in love with you. And that might sound a bit cliche, but it truly is. And I think that the thing that separates sexual self-love from, self-love without it, is that nobody else really has that. Very, very few people actually explore their sexual selves as a pathway for healing and self-realization and these higher levels of sex that I'm always talking about, and all of my work is about cultivating. So by just accepting where you are, like with me, when I had that 2.5-year period, I'd really let go of the idea of being with anybody. I was just content to work on myself, because I knew if I got back into another relationship and I hadn't cleared these old things out, they would just come up again. Right? And so I was committed to resolving and moving myself to a certain place. Again, I had some idea where I was going, but not fully. I was just confident that I would know when I got there. And I did. And then I immediately attracted some amazing people into my life. So this is the time to truly explore, like I said, let go of any expectation of me. If somebody comes along, great, you can check it out, but it's not a forefront of your mind. You connecting with you is the forefront of your mind, and you connecting with your vagina and your body and your sexuality is the forefront of your mind and your genitals. So now I want to share with you one of the most amazing stories I have ever heard. Our well-fucked all-star this week is Charlotte. She took the well-fucked Woman Salon and Vaginal Kung Fu, and she just finished up that round this year. Like, she began well-fucked Woman last summer and then did Vaginal Kung Fu in January, February. So she took these programs as a single and she threw herself into the work. And then, or earlier this year, shortly after Vaginal Kung Fu, she manifested the man of her dreams. And despite us being in the middle of the latest, greatest viral sensation and all of the tyrannical rules and restrictions that have been enacted, love found a way, even when these two were living in different countries with border restrictions. So their story is incredible. Well fucked all-stars. Welcome, Charlotte.
Hi, Kim.
All right. So I'm so excited to talk to you today because you and your story so exemplifies the idea of when we are single, we focus on doing our own deep personal work and we up-level ourselves to attract a excellent, high vibrationally matched partner. So tell us your story.
All right. Well, it was about a year ago. I was in a really rough place. I'd had just a string of partners that hadn't worked out. And I had decided a couple years earlier to try and have a baby on my own because I couldn't meet a partner who wanted to do that with me. And so I finally had gotten pregnant and then had a stillbirth. And that was completely devastating. And I just found myself in this place of like, I have to change something up. I have to do something different than what I've been doing. So I had saved some money and some time for maternity leave, and I decided to use that time and those resources to take the Woman Salon and really commit to working on my shit. And that's what I've been doing ever since then. And that I also took vaginal kung fu, and they were both really transformative and amazing. And I just took all sorts of risks this year in terms of putting energy into working on myself and looking really deeply at how I had gotten off track. And when I decided to have a baby on my own, it was because I thought, I'm just not going to meet someone. So I guess I gotta do it on my own. And I had just programmed that into my mind that was just not, wasn't going to happen. And then when I had this devastating loss, I thought maybe this loss was to teach me that I can have a partner and a child. Maybe this loss is to teach me that I need to get back on track with myself and do some more personal growth work so that I'm really at my optimal self. So that's what I did. And then this thing happened where the world went into their homes. And I thought, oh, great. How the hell am I going to make of my dreams now? But it also became really obvious to me that it wasn't going to happen if I didn't freaking do anything, if I sat at home. So I had this giddy thought that wouldn't it be a good story if I manifested whatever, the man of my dreams, like a really amazing man, during these circumstances of whatever you want to call it.
Love in the time of COVID.
That's right. Yeah. So this giddy little thought of like this little corner of my brain that believed that this might be possible just sort of wedged more and more open as I just took some leaps of faith. I took some big risks. I had been off online dating, thinking, oh, that's just so boring and tedious. And I just thought, okay, on this date, I'm going back on. I'm going to be super upfront about what I want and what I'm looking for. I'm going to post, a few hot pictures of me, and then I'm going to go off a week later. And if nothing happens, fine. And if something happens, great. And of course, 3 days later, I get this message from this guy, and we start texting, and the ball starts rolling, and we're just hitting it off, and it's amazing. And then we're calling each other, and then we're videoing each other, and he's a Yankee and I'm in Canada, and the borders are closed. So I'm falling in love. I'm like, this is I know it. I know this is the person. So about 3 weeks in, I'm like, I have an idea that we because we were desperate to meet each other in person. And I said, I have an idea that we could meet up on a river somewhere. The first time we talked on the phone, within 5 minutes, I was telling him about vaginal kung fu and the different sections of my vagina. Cause I had sent him, this, I took a risk, and I sent him a link to your podcast on tantric sex. Within 2 days of texting him, I sent him a link to this. I just thought either he's going to be into it and that'll be great, or he's going to be weirded out and I'll know that, I need to find someone else. Yeah. And so he was super into it. And he even then went and listened to a ton of other of your podcasts, including Conscious Monogamy, which has been just a really an anchor for us throughout it all. So that was an amazing sign. So we started talking about sex like really, really early on. And obviously we weren't in the same country and the borders were closed. So we weren't meeting together physically, but we started talking about sex. And we started developing these rituals, daily rituals, where we would sit in silence together on the phone. So we would just meditate together on the phone every day for 10, 15 minutes. That was like really profound in terms of an energetic connection. And, you know, at the beginning of a relationship, there's often this like question of like, when are we going to sleep together first? But that wasn't really there. So we had this, this like really beautiful opportunity to get to know each other on an emotional level first. And I think sometimes like people jump into sex before the emotional connection is really strong, and that can lead to, you know, some turbulence maybe. But so we developed these rituals like sitting in silence. We found this little Tibetan book on love where each page is just a little paragraph about how to love. And so every night we still do read a page. We alternate. He went out and got the book immediately. So we'd each have a copy and we take turns reading to each other every night from that. What else? We do eyeballs. So we turn on FaceTime and we just look into each other's eyeballs for a period of time. And that's really hot, like incredibly hot, considering it's like just this technology. It's still like really revealing, and it can bring up a lot of emotion like love and tenderness and truth, really. And then I talked to you, Kim, for some more suggestions, and we put those into play. So we started playing with breathing together over FaceTime. We started putting in this practice of where I would direct energy to one part of his body. And for like, we would set the timer for 2 minutes or something. And I would just consciously direct my like sexual energy towards one part of his body. And then we would flip and he would do the same to me. And we still do this on occasion because it's really fun. And then we, you know, talk about our experience receiving and our experience giving. And it's uncanny how connected we are, where I'll be like, yeah, I really felt sort of tingly in my neck. And then he'll be like, yeah, I was like really focused on your neck.
Right. Yes. Energy sex, energy movement.
Yeah. So we've just gotten super creative about how to connect sexually, emotionally, intellectually, all the ways. And it's been a massive gift, honestly. And the whole like COVID thing kind of made it even more magical, because we felt like, you know, there was this quote unquote like limitation, but we were busting through it. Right. So that really strengthened our connection and our love and our commitment to each other as well. And the thing about this guy, which is just constantly blowing my mind, is how into me he is. And I've had guys who have like been into me for a while, and like, but they're not really invested in growth, personal growth for themselves and relationship growth. And this guy is invested in both of those things. And it's such a relief and such a gift to be with someone who is as invested as I am and who has done his own work as well. So I've like been really on a road of personal growth work since last year, really like full-time following my bliss, and also committing to just, you know, doing all the work I can on my growth in all the realms of my life. So, and he's had a similar journey. So it's like been this confluence of energy where we're just, now we can like take that work that we've done on ourselves and also pour it into work on our relationship together through, you know, communication and creativity and emotions. And it's been amazing. So that's like the first, you know, 5 weeks of our relationship was developing those rituals, those practices, those tools, using those tools to have a really fulfilling relationship, even though we were, 400 miles apart.
Yeah, and those are such great examples of your creativity and commitment to do whatever you could, right? To not let certain quote, as you say, quote unquote, limitations to stop you. And also great examples of both of you doing your work and up leveling to get to this place of liking, like attracts like, to find another person at that vibration who's committed and doing the work and has done enough of their own shit clearing in themselves to leave some of that stuff behind and then attract at a higher vibration. So excellent stuff. So what happened next?
Okay, well, let me tell you, we hatched this plan to meet up in person on the water because if you don't anchor or dock, it's okay for you to be in international waters. We had this plan to meet up on kayaks, but then we saw, like 2 days before that, we saw that there was this other river that was super narrow but had really fast waters, where the border went along the middle of the river. So we each drove several hours on a whim that same day when we discovered that place on the map. We grabbed a pair of binoculars. We each drove several hours to this river, and we stood, it was probably about, a football field apart from each other, on the edges of the river with our binoculars. And that was the very first time we saw each other in person.
Two little specks off in the distance.
Yeah, totally. And like he had a white dog with him, so I could like make, I could be sure it was him. And yeah, we stayed there for 3 hours because we were just so hungry for each other, and just to be in each other's presence like that close was so gratifying. And it felt like epically romantic. And he heard my voice live for the first time because I called across the river to him. And like, we had been doing this thing with the FaceTime, looking at each other's eyeballs. So he calls them eyeballs. I love it. I call them eyes, whatever he says. So we've been looking at each other's eyeballs. So we did that on the edges of the river. And normally, like, he's got his bird noises in his part of the world, and I've got my bird noises or outdoor noises in my part of the world. But we had the same ones and the same noises because we were in the same place, and the same birds were going by in our backgrounds and stuff. So that was really special. And yeah, we got a kind of silly, and he like showed me his bum and stood on a picnic table and like waved, danced around a bit, and I took my top off, and like, we just got silly. Because yeah, we were like that. And it was just like, it was hilarious and beautiful. And we called, like, in like a Shakespearean way, we just like called "I love you" across the river. And it was magical. And it was like 100% worth the 5 hours of driving that I did for the 3-hour date of being like a football field across from him. Right. And also it was really reassuring that he did the same thing and felt the same way. Like that this partner that I've attracted is a great match for me, because he is into the same kind of epic, adventurous, breaking the limitations, and as I am, like breaking through limitations and not letting anyone dictate what we can or can't do. So
and you guys took your first selfie together too.
We did. Yeah, we took our first selfie where he's like a tiny little, he had a red t-shirt on, tiny red spot in the background. Like you have to like zoom in, and like, yeah, it's hilarious. Yeah, that was our first selfie. Yeah.
I love it. And then
so that was 2 days before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets better. So that was 2 days before, where we just couldn't wait the 2 days to, meet in our kayaks. So we did this little river thing. And then, so the next day was the day before we were supposed to meet in kayaks. And I totally had a flip out panic attack where I totally went backwards and was like, this is a bad idea. Like, we're going to get caught. I'm going to get put in jail. Like, you're never going to be allowed to come to Canada. He had already decided that he wanted to move to Canada to be with me, which is just fucking amazing. And so I got super nervous.
So your idea was to meet in international waters so that you would be not in violation of anything.
That's correct.
Yes. So you're going to
Yeah.
kayak
But
out to this place. It was in international waters.
We're gonna kayak from one. He was gonna kayak from his country, and I was gonna kayak from my country, and we're gonna meet in international waters in our kayaks and be able to touch each other. That was the plan. And I had this little flip out the day before where I was like really uptight, and I said like, I said to him, do not pressure me to like pull over onto an island. Just don't, because I want to enjoy this. I was like really kind of anal about it. Like, I want to enjoy this meeting. I don't want to be worried and blah, blah, blah. And I knew, because I'd done the research, that as long as we didn't anchor or dock, we were fine.
Right.
But then the next morning, the day of, I was just like, I took a freezing cold shower just to rock me out of that, limited thinking. And I started, again, just like wedging open my mind to the possibility that this thing that we're going to do is possible, and it was going to be amazing. And I really believe in that, that cliche of like anything is possible or everything is possible. I actually painted it on my bedroom wall in big letters that in French, tout est possible, and it's been my kind of mantra. But that if there's a corner of your brain that believes that something is possible, if like 99% of your brain thinks you're going to die an old maid, but there's 1% of your brain that believes that finding true love or an amazing partner is possible, then it's possible. So you just got to work on making that, wedging that bigger, that 1% bigger. So that's what I focused on that day as I drove there. And there was a couple of good signs from the universe as before I even got to the kayak place. I stopped at a gas station, and it had a big sign on the bathroom that it was closed, due to COVID or whatever, and I really had to pee. So I kind of looked at the guy behind the desk, and I was like, is it really closed? And he said, nah, go in. And so I took that as a sign, like, just because there's a big sign.
Right.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, good. Like, the universe is on my side. The universe is telling me that, like, just because something says it's not possible, it doesn't mean it's not possible. Bathroom's still there. The door still opens. Yeah. Like, you just got to believe that it's possible, and it can be. So there was that. And then when I got to the kayak place, I needed to fill my water bottle, and the two staff people kind of looked at each other. I asked them if they could fill it because I didn't see a fountain anywhere, and they said, oh, we're not supposed to do that anymore because of COVID. And I was like, okay, well, can you recommend like a water fountain nearby? And then they kind of looked at each other, and they're like, oh, you know what, just give it to me. And they went and filled my water bottle. So again, I was like, There's rules, and then there's something else. And I think the something else is this like universal law and of possibility, of infinite possibility. And I think what was driving my capacity for that day was this love that I had for this person, and this confidence that I had in our love and our ability to do anything, including meet on international waters in kayaks.
Yeah.
So I got into my little kayak, and I started paddling. I paddled for about an hour and a half, and he got into
paddle.
his. And
wow.
Yeah, big paddle. And not as big as his though. He had to cross a shipping channel in his little kayak where these like massive ocean liners were going through. So we had this plan where I was going to kayak to the like southernmost Canadian island, and then he was going to kayak to the northernmost American island. Then we're going to meet in between. Yeah. And so I got to the Canadian island, and the plan was I was going to call him when I got there. So I called him, and he was still crossing the shipping channel because there was like white caps and wind and craziness. And I was like, so I changed my mind about crossing the border. I'm just a little nervous. I think I'm just going to have a little snack here on the island, and you can just come to me in Canadian waters. Right. Yeah. And he was like, hold on a sec, honey. I just a lot of wind. Hold on. And he was like in the midst of like the ship. And uh,
It's like I'm
when I
dodging an
heard that,
oil
like he
tanker. Just give me a sec.
exactly. So I was like, when I heard that he was like dodging an oil tanker to like be with me, and he had like a much longer paddle than I did to get to where we were going to meet. I pretended like I didn't say the thing that I had said originally, and was just like, "Yep, I'm on my way. I'm going to cross
Aw.
now." Yeah. So I got back in my kayak, and I was really nervous because there's the border there in the water, and I saw this like jet skier pull up to the border and kind of look both ways and cross, and I knew because like I knew that it was okay if I didn't anchor. So I just like, I was in my little bikini and I looked like a tourist, like a dumb tourist with a little hat on, and yeah, and I just thought, okay, I'm just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna kayak across the international border right now. I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna keep doing it. And so I just did my little kayak across the border, and I heard this little sound that sounded kind of like a mini helicopter or a boat in the distance. And I looked around, and there was
Coming
no
for
boat. So
me.
it's a freaking drone.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so I was just like, stay calm, like just believe it can happen. Just like it's happening. It's all good. Like, and even the other thing that helped me was like, no matter what happens, I'll be okay. Anything happens, I'll be fine. And I really had to kind of embrace that. And all the personal growth work that I had done, including your 2 salons, like gave me that confidence in that moment to just keep going. So I kept going. And after a little while, I saw in the very far distance this solo kayaker rounding the bend of the island that was on my left. And my heart started racing. I thought, is it him? It could be anybody. It could be another kayaker out. But he was like, this kayaker was going so fast, straight at me. And so I was like, I think it's him. I think it's him. And like, we had been talking and on in text every day, all day. We'd been talking on the phone. We'd been having sex on the phone, on video. Like, we knew each other well. And still I was just so overwhelmingly excited. And he was coming straight for me, and I kept sort of doing a little bikini girl paddle towards him. And obviously it was him, and he came straight, his kayak nose to nose, came straight to me, and then pulled up right next to me, and he just like threw his arms around me and just planted his lips right on mine, and we made out. And the kayaks, because of the force of us coming from different directions, started to spin. So we were like kissing, and our 2 kayaks were spinning like a freaking movie. And it was like, it was epic. It was out of this world. So that's the first time that we touched.
Yeah.
And it was like the pleasure of that, plus the giddiness of us doing what we were doing, that just amped everything up. And then it was like, he had strapped this inflatable paddleboard to the back of his kayak so that he could put it between us so we could, as he said, like eat our snacks. But really he meant so we could both get on it and like be on the same boat at least. So yeah, anyway, we were enjoying each other's company, and a storm came up, like a thunderstorm started rolling in, and the kayak rental place called me and was like, where are you? And I was like, I don't know. Somewhere in the islands. And so they're like, start paddling back now. And I had just like half an hour met him. I was like, no, I think I'll just wait it out. I'll just pull over into an island. Anyway, so the storm came up, and I decided that if we got, storm stayed somewhere, I'd prefer to be in my country. So he agreed to accompany me across the channel to the Canadian island where I had originally called him from. And the storm came up and it was intense. Like there was lightning and thunder and white caps. And because he had this freaking paddleboard strapped to the back of his kayak, he was getting blown out away from me.
Oh.
And I kept looking over, and like sometimes he would be behind a wave so I couldn't see him. And I knew that he would be worried about me a little bit. I'm a very strong kayaker, but you know, it was a very intense moment, and I didn't have a skirt in my kayak, so there was water coming in, and it was frightening. But I remember the exact moment where I just thought, Charlotte, you have to stay calm or else this isn't going to end well. So I just narrowed in my focus to my third eye and to the point where I was going on the island. And I just dug in, and you know, I'm sure adrenaline helped me. And I had this faith that we were going to make it. And it was so symbolic of, you know, our relationship and how there are going to be storms and, you know, challenges in relationship, but we need to hold true to our own path and our capabilities, you know, have confidence in our own capabilities and trust that the other person is taking care of themselves as well. Because, you know, I couldn't worry all about him and he couldn't worry all about me because we had to take care of ourselves. And when we were about 100 meters out from the island and I knew that we were going to be okay, I looked over at him and like flashed him a big smile and did a big like whoop whoop, so that he knew that I was all good. And it was amazing. And we were fine. We pulled into the island. Then of course we were all wet and cold, so we had to deal with that.
How did you deal with it, Charlotte?
Well, you know, Kim, like when you're wet, it doesn't help to have clothes on.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah,
we had to take them off just for practical purposes, right?
Uh-huh.
So we didn't get hypothermia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was amazing. And then the next morning we met up again. On the same island and had a beautiful experience together. And again, we're just like so high on life because we had made this thing happen despite all these quote unquote limitations of the time. And the story doesn't end there, because after we got back from our kayak trip and we're more in love than ever, we of course want to see each other again. So one day he just got in his truck and started driving to the border thinking like, I'm just going to convince them that they have to let me in. And he called the American side of the border and told them our story. And the American guard was like, yeah, dude, man, that's an amazing story. Like, I'll let you back in if you get across. I'll put you through a direct line to the Canadian guy.
What?
And so, yeah. So he put him through to the Canadian guy. But of course, the Canadian guy listened to him for like 5 seconds and then just hung up on him.
What?
Yeah. So he didn't get in, and we're a bit discouraged that day. That was the one day we were a little bit discouraged, but it just propelled us even more to seek out other possibilities. So I started doing some research and about these border closures, and I learned that actually Americans can't come to Canada and Canadians can't drive to America, but Canadians can fly to America right now. And I found an article about a woman on the West Coast who, I don't know, it was her fiance or something, and she just bought an airplane ticket and went to the airport, and yeah, the Americans just let her in. And I was like, okay, is this for real? And then the next day, so I told him about it. He's like, well, buy a ticket. So that night we bought myself an airplane ticket. And the next day, my dad sent me an article from the national newspaper saying that indeed, there is this loophole that no one really knows about because no one's really talking about it, where Canadians can fly to the States. So I got on a plane like 3 days later and stayed with him for 2 weeks.
Whoa.
After only met him for like those 2 kayak times. Like I'd never slept over with him, and all of a sudden I was in his home for 2 weeks, and it was amazing. And again, it was just like we were so bolstered by what we were doing, and that we were making this magic happen, and seemingly miracles happen because we believed it was possible, and we weren't allowing ourselves to be constrained by the popular narrative. And so that has been like, it's been a huge part of our story, and also um, just like our love, like how we're both on the same page in that department, that we can make anything happen if we want to. Um, so that's the story.
That is one of my most favorite stories I think I've ever heard, Charlotte, really.
Thanks.
It's
Yeah.
incredible. And oh, just such great and so many beautiful themes within it. Like you guys, working on yourselves. I know the work that you've done, obviously, in the salons. And then this notion, like staying focused on the goal, like you're the microcosm of you seeing the island and just knowing that, that's where you need to get to and focusing on it. And it happens. And I think also testament to love is the highest vibration, right? And so when we're coming from that place and genuinely in it, it does give us these superpowers to blast through seeming limitations, right? There's earthly laws and there's spiritual laws, and the law of love and higher spiritual laws transcend earthly laws. And I mean, that might not always be arguable in a court of law, but I think on at least energetic wavelengths, that's definitely the truth. And I think your story just so exemplifies that.
Yeah, and people pick up on that vibration too, right? Like the gas station guy and the
Yeah.
people guy. And one other little bit of the story that I forgot to tell was when we went to the river, the first time with our binoculars. I was so excited to see him. I stopped at the scenic lookout and I locked my keys in my car. And luckily, I had my phone, and I called whatever the people who help you get your keys out, and they said it was going to be an hour. And I said, "Listen, this is my story. This is what I'm doing right now." And I told them the love story, and the lady was like, "Yeah, they'll be there in 15 minutes."
Oh my gosh.
Like 15
Oh,
minutes later, I was like in my car again and driving to a spot that was closer in the river so I could see him better. And so, yeah, it's just like when you're in that vibration of love and possibility, people are attracted to that and they go with it. They just, miracles happen. Yeah.
amazing. I totally agree. And I think people forget that or they've never really experienced it. And so it's hard for them to believe that. Right. And so that's why being able to share things like this really helps people to have faith that it's possible and that is such a powerful vibration. I mean, that's what I talk about all the time, this idea of your sexual superpowers, right? That when you link up sexual energy and love energy together, you have this incredible source that's 100-fold even more strong than the two of them separately. And that's the stuff that really does. It's the creative energy of the universe. And there it is, propelling you into new realities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, is there anything else you would share relating to your journey, like, say, working through stuff in the salon or working through your own process of clearing blockages that you think is relevant to this? So, for people who are in that place of, let's say somebody is single and wanting to believe that they can create new love. And so the work that you did, how would you say that was instrumental in opening you and clearing space for something like this to come into your life?
Yeah. I think when one commits to themselves to growth, it sends a message. It sends a vibrational message um, to the universe, and stuff starts to happen. Like stuff starts to shift. But you do have to commit. You do have to do the work. So you can't just believe. 1% of you believe it's going to happen and sit on your couch and not do anything. And yeah, sometimes, like for me, for my journey, the turning point was a great loss and a great tragedy, and that really made me go, okay, what do I need to do here so that I am more on track? So I think like it's so important to look at everything and to realize that everything is an opportunity, everything is a gift. So even if you have, you know beliefs around your age or your body or your some past trauma, that is actually not a limitation. It's the key into growth. It's the doorway. So I think for me, it was really about taking the situation that I was in and making it into what I wanted it to be through doing the work and putting the time in, and like not always feeling like it was going well, but just keep on showing up. I just kept on showing up and kept on going. And it didn't happen immediately, but when it did happen, it felt like it happened so fast, and everything, like with meeting my partner, it just all of a sudden everything started ramping up so fast. And then I thought, okay, so all this work I've been putting in is now paying off. And there's a wonderful image about the way that bamboo grows. Do you know about this one, Kim?
I don't think I've heard this analogy.
Okay, I think it's Chinese bamboo or something. But so when you have this bamboo, you water it and you tend to it, and it grows in a year. It maybe grows like an inch, and then the next year you water it, you tend to it, and it grows another inch. In the third year, you water it, you tend to it, it grows another inch. Same thing in the fourth year. In the fifth year, it grows 80 feet. This is this one kind of plant. And so I love this analogy because when you're putting the work in, you might not see the benefits right away, but the roots are going down and the energy is building so that you can have this 80 feet of growth in an instant almost. At some point. So that image is really helpful for me when I'm feeling like things aren't moving as quickly as I want them to. But I really experienced that in this past year where I put the work in and I started to feel little bits of growth here and there, but still wasn't meeting anyone, kept putting the work in. And then all of a sudden the 80 feet happen, and I'm off to the races, and life is amazing. And I feel high all the time, even though I'm sober.
That's such a great metaphor. Is there anything else you'd like to share in closing?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Yeah, this is just a funny little thing. So my partner, his name is Robert. He's a dream, and he's like beyond my wildest dreams. He's like, if you had told me that this is the person that I was going to meet, like, I would be like, no way. Like a couple years ago, I'd be like, impossible. He's like a lumberjack and a forest firefighter. He's so manly. And I really learned to embrace my femininity too through your salons. I used to be that type of, like, I'm a theater director. So I had been programmed to be like kind of masculine in my way. And the salons have really helped me find my femininity. So I've attracted a really masculine man, which is like my dream, but I wasn't doing that before because I was not in my femininity. Anyway, he's like obsessed with you too. And we want to do your couples salon, and I think he wants to do sexual mastery for men too. Although he thinks it should be called cock-rate, like vaginal kung fu.
Cock-rate? Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I was thinking, he said cock-rate, but I thought Kakarate, I thought would be better, but whatever. Kakarate. And yeah, like I told you before, he calls you edamame just for fun. So just, yeah, shout out to him because he's been so supportive of my work with you, and also like really open to your work and your podcasts and everything. And that, I think a lot of women think maybe this is just my own projection, but a lot of women may think that, oh, my man would never like be into this. But there are men out there who are like totally into, I mean, you work with them. But yeah, like when I brought up Tantra and the fact that I had done VKF when I met him, because I had just finished VKF like 2 weeks before I met him. So I'm sure that had an effect as well. I brought it up right away, and he was like, fuck yeah. That sounds amazing. Like you worked on your vagina, like you've taken an 8-week course about vaginas. Like, yes, bring it on. Of course I want that. So yeah, I guess that's the last thing that I would say to anyone out there who's like single and, maybe losing a little bit of faith in their potential to attract an amazing mate. Like it is possible, and those amazing men are out there. And if you think that they aren't, then they aren't.
Yeah.
But if you think they are, they are.
Yeah. And that the universe can put together some incredible composition that's just an amazing match for you, right? Like everything is possible. And even your example, like you found this ultra masculine man, right? Like very kind of stereotypical, but in a good way, type masculinity, who's also then into listening to these podcasts and doing tantric eye gazing exercises, right? Like they have this beautiful blend of all these things. So everything is possible.
Everything is possible.
Oh, so good. All right. Well, let's end on that note. Thank you so much, Charlotte, for sharing your story and just being able to be, like I've said, that beacon, that example for people of what's possible out there, and go from one type or one mindset in your life and completely radically change that and manifest and create the life of your dreams. So well done, Charlotte.
Thank you, Kim. And thank you for all of your help and guidance and support along the way.
How wild is that story? Everything about it, their creativity and finding ways to connect, and their courage and how they did that, and all of these beautiful spiritual universal affirmations along the way, it's all so inspirational. So Charlotte is an amazing testament to how doing the work of good fucking yourself up levels you into a higher vibration where, as I said, you can then attract a higher quality partner who can meet you where you want to be. And talk about meeting you, right? Look at how they met each other all over the place and then grow together. The Well-Fucked Woman Salon begins today. All the tools you need for a lifetime of being well-fucked. You can find the registration page at my website, kimanami.com. Look under Sexual Savant Salons and then look for the Well-Fucked Woman. In this 8-week How to Live, Love, and Orgasm in a Female Body education you never received, you will learn how to master the technical skills of oral sex, deep throating, anal sex, and wild hand jobs, and how to use these sex acts to accelerate your personal growth and transformation. You will also achieve the deeper life-changing vaginal orgasms, channel your creative orgasmic sexual energy into your life and work, accessing your genius, and clear your sexual blocks and release your unprocessed weight, and much, much more. Come one, come all. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, subscribe and also leave a review. And send someone else the gift of a healthy libido and an off-the-charts love life by sharing this episode with them. We'll be back next week, and in the meantime, many happy orgasms.